So we are seeing some pretty significant things in this chapter, such as GARP's ridiculous display of power. Like, it's clearly showing us that he is far and above, way stronger than most of the cast at this point. And that's pretty wild because most of the cast in this flashback are some of the strongest characters to ever exist in this series. We're also seeing some other fights, I guess. I mean, it's what I expected, you know. Clash, lightning, one panel, move on, which it is what it is. You know, Toei will pick up the slack in 2 years once they eventually adapt this into the anime. So in the beginning here, we're seeing that Dragon does have Shanks and Shamrock as babies, but he's being shot at by one of the Holy Knights by the name of Saint Maffy from the Satchel family. She strikes that nice balance of what is known in Japan as yami kawaii, kind of. And she has like this beam coming out of her mouth. I don't know if it's a devil fruit or if it's a cyborg augmentation, probably a devil fruit. Also, I don't know why she has horns and sharp teeth. It could be her bloodlines mixing together, or it could also be a part of the devil fruit. Her hair also has like a volcano kind of top to it. That's probably like insight into her abilities or background or something, because that's like what Oda does. But getting shot by, you know, Saint Maffy causes Dragon to drop little baby Shanks, and he hits his head. And that made me think, oh, I guess that's why Shanks doesn't grow up to be a psychopath like the rest of the Celestial Dragons, because CTE, which, you know, I talked about this before, but it's pretty funny because in real life, the more brain trauma or CTE that you accrue, it makes you more likely to become a psychopath. But in anime world, as we've seen with Goku, you know, destined to be a world-conquering Saiyan, he bumped his head as a baby. It was actually a big bump. And he wound up becoming Meathead Babyface Savior of the Universe. But this is when the Rocks Pirates come in to save the day, kind of accidentally, because Whitebeard is just blowing through the forest here, trying to get to where Shaki is, I guess. And him doing that cuts directly through Mafi, who, you know, has like the Holy Knight Emu regeneration stuff going on. And I guess it just means that this makes them more susceptible to being damaged. It's also just another way for Oda to show that they have regeneration. But what ultimately happens is Maffy gets Shamrock, and that's how, you know, Shamrock grows up to be Shamrock, and Dragon gets Shanks and saves him, and that's, of course, how Shanks grows up to be Akagami. But going more into this sequence, we get to see Big Mom, Whitebeard, Kaido, and Shiki all working together to fight against these NPC pirates. It's just, I don't like this sequence because it just doesn't make sense. They're like going after the Rocks Pirates because they're like, oh, if we can take them down, we'll be famous. I appreciate that we get to see the Rocks Pirates, you know, this quartet especially, all working together, because otherwise we'll never be able to see this in the series. Yes, it is one panel as I expected, but it's still cool nonetheless. Then we're getting to the big title in the thumbnail of this chapter, and it's because GARP, coincidentally, comes across this group, and he just goes right in and starts dropping fist nukes on them. And this is very cool. I don't like GARP. I already ragged on him enough in my 2 previous reviews for the spoilers, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse in this video. But the one issue that I have with this sequence outside of GARP as a character is that Whitebeard literally runs away from GARP here. And I don't know who's saying this because the speech bubble is ambiguous, but it says, it's GARP, run, a fight with him will drag on too long. First of all, it's like, drag on too long for what? I know you're there to get Shaki, but you could just stay there and fight him for 3 minutes. It's 4-on-1. Or I guess at this point it's 3-on-1. Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard versus GARP. It doesn't seem like that's too unrealistic of a fight to have. But the main thing here is Whitebeard running away. He literally runs away from a fight with GARP. Now, why is that problematic? Well, it's because during Marineford, Whitebeard was built up to be this fearless goat pirate, right? And he still is to a degree. But his whole sequence where he dies goes to show that he had no marks on his back because he, like, essentially never turned to his opponents or never ran away. That was the implication, right? But clearly, he ran away from GARP like a coward. And yes, I guess he's not getting damaged from this, so his back is still pristine. But still, I think this is like diminishing Whitebeard's character. And again, psycho YouTuber, I look way too much into this stuff. The casual will never think about stuff like this. But you are on the hardcore side of the One Piece YouTube spectrum. So you're going to hear opinions like this from somebody like me, who, like I also said before, has opinions on this series and isn't just an Oda sycophant. But to further add to Garp's hype moments and aura here, Big Mom fires this big blast at him, which is like a fusion of Prometheus and Zeus, and it just does nothing to him. He's like, this isn't even hot enough to cook a prime rib, Lin, which is cool. Very cool. Big Mom technically shouldn't really be, Yonko level at this point, because she becomes Yonko level in strength like in her 50s and 60s, I guess. I don't know how old she is here. Maybe she's in her 20s or something. But after that, they kind of run away successfully. And what this is going to lead to is, I guess, Garp eventually finding out that the hunting game is going on now, because he's not aware of that. It doesn't seem like most of the cast here is aware of what's going on in God Valley yet. They're all kind of just fighting each other. There's explosions and stuff. I guess the narrative here is that they don't know that innocent civilians are being massacred by psychopaths. So we for sure will come to a point of where everyone realizes what's going on, especially Garp. Because Sengoku said that Garp doesn't want to talk about God Valley because clearly he finds out what had happened, and that I think he said that God Valley, the incident itself, was the reason why Garp stayed as a vice admiral, because he didn't want to directly serve the Celestial Dragons as an admiral. Which, sure, but still, you're still serving them. So even if Garp has some kind of crazy redemption at the end of this arc, it still doesn't matter. And yeah, that's just my opinion. But also, we're getting like a little preview of what might happen in the next chapter, because this one Marine is like giving us the classic Oda map layout of where everything's happening. Usually he winds up doing stuff like this like 3/4 into an arc when all of the chaos is happening and the ticking clock is running. I don't think he's ever done this in a flashback before, but this Marine is showing us where everybody is on the island. The Celestial Dragons are on this side, Rox is coming up through the center, and Roger is coming on the opposite side, where Rox and Roger will eventually converge, or hopefully they will. Also, Rox only has one panel in this chapter, unfortunately. He's looking for his wife and son Blackbeard, and he for sure will find them, and that's going to lead to his death, in my opinion. But hopefully we get to see Rox versus Roger eventually, because that's what's being teased here. So maybe in the next chapter or the next 3 chapters, we'll see Rox versus Roger, or maybe even Rox versus Roger versus Garp. Because we know that Sengoku thinks, at least, that Roger and Garp's teamed up to take down Rox, and that's probably not what happened. Oh, and speaking of Roger, we see one panel of him running into Whitebeard and they clash, and lightning, and then that's it, which is part of the course for Oda at this point in his career, which is fine. Like I said, Toei will pick up the slack, but there's more time spent in this chapter of us seeing how awful Summers is and how he's like abusing Shaki and he's going to kill her. We already know that Summers is awful, and we already know that Shaki is in prison, that everybody's here to save her, but there's more time spent on that to flesh that out. But I can't help but think that, like, don't we want to see Roger fight Whitebeard in an extended fight more than we want to see 3 pages of Shaki getting abused by Summers? Or maybe the casuals don't care about the fights and, legends fighting each other. Maybe they do want to see this loose love story between Shaki and Rayleigh. And I say loose because all it is just they've had a few looks at each other throughout the years, and Shaki was like, I guess you're my type, and then gave him a letter. Right? I mean, that's ultimately what it boiled down to. But as Summers is about to kill Shaki because he's crazy, he's a psychopath, he has no empathy or anything, that's why he's going to kill her. There's no other better reason, because I guess he's jealous that Garling's going to get her. I guess that's another reason. Rayleigh comes to save the day, wrecks Summers with one of his named attacks, saves Shaki, and they have like this nice little embrace. And seemingly the Roger Pirates are going to escape at this point. Obviously, it's not going to be that simple. Like I said, we're probably going to see Rox encounter them at some point. But let me know what you think about this chapter. I know I was kind of harsh, but let me know what you think about this chapter, guys. If you liked it, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.